Thank you for joining us to learn more about the Smith Road improvements, Apache Boulevard to University Drive, project assessment. The project area we're focusing on for the purposes of this project is between University Drive and Apache Boulevard along Smith Road in Tempe. And the project really has to do with infrastructure improvements such as sidewalk improvements, landscaping, potentially bike lanes, and so on and so forth. Next slide, please. And the purpose of working with the community on this project is really to get input from residents and other stakeholders that are interested in improvements in this area, and to get your feedback on specific alternatives that are being developed with our consultants at HDR. The city has hired HDR, Ray Carranza, who you'll be hearing from shortly, to work on some of the technical aspects of this project and assess the area to determine what specific kinds of improvements can be made to the area to promote safety for pedestrians and bicycles and everyone in the community to comfortably use it and to be able to access it and move freely between and through and from this area. The Smith Innovation Hub Infrastructure Master Plan, which was approved by Council in March of this year, recommended specific improvements along Smith Road, such as the sidewalks, lighting, bike lanes, and landscape that I referred to earlier. And within that plan, it really covered the area between Rio Salado Parkway and University along Smith Road. This project assessment, for the purposes of this project, extends that route and takes the improvements all the way to Apache Boulevard along Smith Road, making it a more complete route for folks to easily move between the neighborhood, between Apache and University, and the business area between University and Rio Salado Parkway along Smith Road, all the way through and around that area. And so they can easily get to work, so they can get to some of the new housing that's being built in the area, to and from existing homes, and comfortably move about the area in a safe, convenient way. The recommended improvements from the approved March 2022 master plan, again, extend between University to Apache Boulevard for the purposes of this project assessment. And eventually we will be working to design the entire route that I mentioned between Rio Salado and Apache, but for the purposes of this, we're discussing University and Apache Boulevard. Next slide, please. Now I'd like to turn it over to my colleague Ray Carranza with HDR to talk a little bit in further detail about the specific design alternatives for this area.
Thank you, Jill. Again, my name is, as Joe mentioned, my name is Ray Carranza. I'm the project manager representing the design team. I'm here today to describe the process we went through to develop the Smith Road improvement alternatives, and also provide an overview of the 15% level design. We had our first public meeting on May 13th, 2022. In addition to the public meeting, an online survey was also sent out to seek public input. We had a combined total of 112 responses and attendees for the public outreach efforts. The public outreach gave the design team and city staff the opportunity to document stakeholder and public input for the development of the alternatives. And as a result of the public outreach, we received input on concerns about things like the lack of bicycle lanes and also the condition of the existing sidewalks in the area. Inadequate street lighting was also a concern along the corridor. And the online survey also asked the public how they felt about the need for on-street parking through the existing corridor. And based on the responses received, the survey results did not indicate a strong desire to have on-street parking for the corridor. Other design considerations used in the development of the alternatives were the future plan developments in the area. Um, the design team also identified existing features to be removed, relocated, or protected in place, which will vary depending on the design alternatives moving forward. And as I mentioned in the previous slide, the existing right-of-way available also, as I mentioned in the previous slide, the existing right-of-way available and also maintaining access to the from the private private development to the access to the road. That's also a design consideration that we are paying close attention to. So based on one, the public outreach, two, the existing condition assessment, and three, the design considerations, two alternatives were developed and evaluated. The two main differences you'll see between the alternatives is the impact to the existing roadway width. Alternative one requires roadway widening to implement the improvements such as buffered bike lanes, widened sidewalks, and street lighting. And alternative two maintains the existing roadway width and requires adjustment of the proposed striping improvements to accommodate the existing roadway width. So what you see here is the typical roadway section for alternative one. The new roadway width shown here is 40 foot compared to the existing 30 feet in the previous slides that show which shows the existing roadway section. We've added the existing section underneath alternative one for comparison purposes. A striped bike lane is proposed for the whole corridor, and it will be a buffered bike lane between Howie Avenue and University Drive. The limits of the buffered bike lane was based on the site constraints, but what this alternative tries to do is maximize the limits of the buffered bike lane by implementing the roadway widening. This alternative includes reconstruction of all the sidewalks to be 6 foot wide and the ramps to meet ADA guidelines. And also, as part of the improvements, removal of on-street parking is also recommended. This graphic here depicts the design elements for alternative one, as shown on the 15% design roll plot. This is just a small section of the full corridor between Apache and University, but I just wanted to point out some of the key points on this graphic. The alternative one shown here shows the roadway widening that's being that depicts it in the magenta colored shape. The yellow color areas is where ramp construction and sidewalk widening is being proposed. The existing right-of-way is shown as a green line, and the red line will either be new right-of-way or temporary construction easement. This slide here shows the typical roadway section for alternative two. The roadway width shown here is between 30 to 32 feet compared to the existing roadway width at 30 feet. And we've included the existing typical section underneath just for comparison purposes. A buffered bike lane between Orange Street and University Drive is included as part of this alternative in the areas where a buffered bike lane is not feasible. Based on the existing roadway width, the proposed roadway lanes will be adjusted to allow for a striped bike lane as shown in the typical section graphic for alternative two. And similar to alternative one, this option includes reconstruction of all sidewalks to be 6 foot wide and ramps to meet ADA guidelines. And as part of the improvements for these alternatives, on-street parking is the removal of on-street parking is recommended. And in this graphic here, it shows the design elements for alternative two. as shown on the 15% design roll plot. Again, this is just a small section of the corridor between Apache and University. Alternative 2 shows no roadway widening, and the existing roadway width will be maintained throughout. The yellow color is the areas where sidewalk and ramp reconstruction is being proposed. And similar to the previous slides, the existing right-of-way shown as green, and the red line shows either new right-of-way or temporary construction easement. The next couple of slides will go over the project considerations as we move into the final design stage. The graphic shows a site visit photo on the upper left and a screenshot from the 15% design plans on the lower right. We have identified potential areas for new right-of-way or easement, mainly occurring at the intersections. The standard ramp configuration has a larger footprint than what you see in that site photo on that upper left-hand photo there. But as the design progresses, we will look at ways to eliminate or minimize any additional right-of-way or easement needs. And depending on the alternative moving forward, a widened sidewalk may impact existing privacy walls or landscaping. In this case, TCEs for new sidewalks and ramps may be required as we move into the final design stage. And depending on the alternative moving forward, utility relocations may also be needed. The design team has identified existing utility features in the corridor, and those facilities may need to be relocated if they conflict with the proposed improvements. An example of some of the existing utilities in the corridor are irrigation structures like the one you see here in the center of the slide. That structure is close to the existing sidewalk, and if the sidewalk is widened along with the ramp, a special design ramp will need to be implemented to avoid or mitigate any impacts to those existing utility structures. On the upper right hand, upper right hand photo, that shows existing overhead power along the east side of Smith Road. Maintaining the required clearances from these poles also needs to be considered in the development of the final design. And as far as drainage needs, I didn't include a photo here, but the existing drainage inlets will need to be evaluated as the project moves into final design. For example, if we do roadway widening, that would require an increase in drainage capacity for the existing drainage system there. Next steps, once your input have been received and documented, the design team will identify a preferred alternative and further develop the design to a 30% level. Final design is anticipated to be completed by the winter of 2022, with construction starting in the spring of 2023. Estimated construction duration, it's approximately around 6 to 8 months for this project. And like at this time, that concludes the overview of the 15% design, and I'll go ahead and toss it back to Jill.
Thank you, Ray. So we really are seeking your input. And the best way to give that to us is by answering a survey and providing specific comments to us about this project at tempe.gov/Smith Road. There are a variety of questions there, and you can weigh in on what you'd like to see there, provide your comments and information, and identify yourself. And we will incorporate those as much as possible moving forward and into this project assessment. And as Ray said, there will be a final design likely for this route by the end of this calendar year or very early 2023. Next slide, please. And as you see, the project contacts are with our engineering and transportation department. as well as myself with economic development. Ken Halloran is the project lead as senior civil engineer. Kathy Hollow as with our engineering and transportation department. She's our traffic engineer. And then I'm a program manager with our economic development department. And if you want general information overall to take the survey and about this project, again, go to tempe.gov/Smith Road. Thank you very much.